Well, our story today is from a book I haven't told you a story from in a while. You guys remember this one? Do you guys remember Miracle on the Mountain? Yep. Well, we have a story from the country of Chile in here. This story took place many years ago, over 100 years ago, in the year 1895. The story is called The Impossible Dream. In 1895, in the city of Santiago, Chile, there lived a couple brothers, Victor and Eduardo. They were the sons of a man named Matthias, and they were cabinet makers. They built cabinets with their dad. He had a big shop that he would make wooden cabinets. They would work with him there, and they would also spend a lot of time with their family. They were really good sons. They wanted to be good boys for their dad, and they were older. They were probably like 18 or 20 by this point. And they would work with their dad every day except on Saturday. On Saturday, their dad would let them have a day to themselves to not work in the shop, even though he'd be working. So that's a clue to you already that their dad would still work on Saturday. They weren't Seventh-day Adventists. They didn't know anything about the Sabbath in the Bible. They were actually members of another religion called a Catholic religion. And the Catholics, they go to church on Sunday. And most of the people in the city of Santiago, Chile, were Catholic. Now, even though the people of the town of Santiago, or the city of Santiago, were Catholic, and that meant that they would go to church on Sunday, and they would worship God to a church, and they believed in God, they also were very superstitious. Does anybody know what the word superstitious means? Well, it's obviously more than just being stitious. It's superstitious. Being superstitious means to have kind of like these thoughts or these beliefs that are kind of magical. Like you kind of think like you can change the way the future will be if you do certain things. Like they believe, for example, if somebody wore black clothing, that wasn't good because it meant that somebody else might die. Have you ever put on black clothing and then somebody died? No, that's never happened to me. The color of your clothing doesn't determine if somebody dies, but that's what they kind of believe. They didn't like the color black at all. In fact, if they would see a black butterfly, they would run away because black butterflies were bad luck. If you were on a black butterfly, something bad might happen to you. That's what they believe. If you were on a black cat or a black dog, they would run away. They didn't want to be by anything black. When they would go to a funeral, if somebody did actually die, they would never wear black at the funeral, because if you wore black when you went to the funeral, people would blame you for the person dying. They'd say, "You're why they died. You're wearing black, that's why they died." They're already dead. I just picked out this black clothing today to come to the funeral. But that's how they would believe. So they had lots of superstitious beliefs. They really thought dreams were very important too. They felt that dreams could tell them a lot about the future. Now we know from the Bible that dreams can tell us about the future, right? Isn't that right? Can you guys think of anyone who had a dream in the Bible that told them something about the future? That's right, Nebuchadnezzar had some dreams, didn't he, that told the future? So dreams can tell the future if God sends you a dream. But these people were so superstitious, they had so many kind of strange little beliefs that they thought that every dream might tell them something about something, and that sometimes that your dreams could even cause bad problems for you. Like they would believe that if you dreamt that somebody was getting married, that meant somebody was going to die soon. And that if you dreamt that somebody had died, that meant somebody was going to get married soon. And they dreamt that they believe that if you dreamt about the moon, and the moon was dark, then that was bad luck. But if you dreamt that the moon was full, then that was good luck. So their dreams were really important to them. And sometimes they would talk about their dreams and tell each other what their dreams were and try to figure out what their dreams meant. Well, one morning, it was a Friday morning, Victor, the younger son, he woke up and he'd had a dream. He woke up and he was laying there going, "What was my dream about again? Oh my goodness, my dream was about, I was walking down the main street in Santiago, the city where we live, and on the sidewalk there were two men standing there that didn't look like they belonged. They looked like they were from some other country. And they obviously didn't speak Spanish really well, which by the way, that's the main language that they spoke in Chile, it was Spanish. So Victor said, in my dream, they were talking Spanish, but it's like they couldn't speak it very well, and they were reading from a book. And they were saying things, and I don't remember everything they were saying, but there was a couple phrases they kept saying. Like one of them kept saying something about, "Bless the Lord, O my soul. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Bless the Lord, O my soul." And then the other guy, he was saying something too, but it was like his Spanish was really bad. Like he could barely speak it, and he was saying east and west, east and west, east and west, east and west. Victor didn't know what that meant. Do you know what that means? Well, I don't know what it means. But Victor thought, boy, that really stuck in my head. I wonder, and they looked like they were nice guys, like maybe I should become their friends or something, like they weren't scary. I wonder what that dream meant. Well, I guess it's just a dream. I'm not going to worry about it very much. And so he didn't tell anybody about the dream. He got up, he went downstairs, he had breakfast, he had family worship, and for family worship, his father would read a chapter from the Bible every day. They would just read through the whole Bible, and so this particular day they were in the book of Jeremiah, and Jeremiah chapter 29, as Victor was sitting there listening, he was kind of bored. He never really enjoyed listening to the Bible very much. He was listening to it, and he heard a verse that said, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." And Victor thought, oh, that actually sounds kind of nice. So many of these other chapters in the Bible have sounded boring to me, but that sounds really nice. Like it's like God is saying he wants to be my friend, and like he wants to take care of me. That's nice. And then he didn't think any more about it. And the day went by, he went home from work that night, and he knew the next day was going to be what? If that day had been Friday, what was the next day going to be? Sabbath. But of course he didn't think of it as Sabbath. It was just Saturday. And he knew that it was a special day for him because he didn't have to work that day because his dad wouldn't let his brother Eduardo and him go out and just have fun that day. So they did. They went out to have fun. They went walking around. They went to play some games with some friends. They went down to watch some horse races. They went and had lunch somewhere. And then they went for a walk down the main street in the town of Santiago. And there were lots of people there, people selling food, and people cleaning the streets, and people driving by in wagons, and people playing, and children running around. Lots and lots and lots and lots of people. And as they were walking along, they were watching people left and watching people on the right and looking up ahead. And up ahead on the sidewalk, as they were walking forward, Victor noticed there were a couple guys standing there, two young guys, and they were reading out loud from a book. And as he got closer, he said, from the shape of that book and kind of the color of the cover and the edges of the book have like little gold color in them, there must be a Bible. That's usually how people have a Bible. It looks nice like that with a leather cover, kind of gold trimmed pages. Let me see if I can hear what they're reading as I go by. And as he walked by, he heard the one man saying in Spanish, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul." Does that sound familiar? It sounded familiar to Victor. He's like, why does that sound so familiar? Like I just heard that before. It didn't quite make sense until the other man who was standing there started to read some verses from the Bible too. And he obviously had not spoken Spanish for very long. He couldn't say it very well. His accent was all wrong. He was stumbling over the words, but he was still trying. He was practicing to read Spanish from this Spanish Bible, and what he said sounded kind of like, "As the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy toward those who fear him." And Victor was just about to nudge his brother in the elbow and say, "Boy, that guy, he really can't speak Spanish very well, can he?" When he heard the next words that the man said, "As far as the east is from the west, so far he has removed our transgressions from us." The east from the west? East from west, bless the Lord, O my soul? Victor suddenly realized where he'd heard those words before. Where had he heard them? In his dream the night before. On Friday. And now he was hearing these men talking. They were standing on a sidewalk in the street of Santiago reading from a book, and they were saying the things that he heard. He said to his brother, Eduardo, I dreamt about those guys." His brother said, "What? What? When?" He says, "2 nights ago, I dreamt I saw those guys. They were standing on the street corner, and they were reading from a Bible, and they were saying those exact words." His brother said, "What? How is that possible? You're telling me you recognize these guys?" Like, "Yeah, those are the guys I saw in my dream." He says, "Oh, you can't see people in a dream unless you've seen them in real life before. You must have seen them before somewhere else, or maybe you saw their pictures or something. There's no way you just know these guys without having seen them with your real eyes before." And Victor said, No, I'm telling you I saw them. And it doesn't matter, listen, whether I saw them before or not. I believe I saw them in my dream for the first time. You can believe whatever you want to, but the point is, they were doing exactly this. They were reading from a Bible in Spanish, and one of them was reading it kind of badly because he didn't speak Spanish well, and those are the words they were saying. Eduardo said, "Are you sure?" He says, "I'm really sure. And it must be true because it's happening right here. It must be important." Now you remember, Victor and Eduardo lived in a part of the world where they believed in dreams were very, very important, right? So now Victor thought to himself, I'm seeing my dream come true. It must be super duper important. I am going to believe this dream, that it must mean something. And so he went right up to those guys. He said, "Excuse me, excuse me, my name is Victor, and you are men from God. Now I want you to just stop a moment and think, what if you had been one of those two guys who, as it turned out, were missionaries? They'd come from another country, from America. Their names were Fred Bishop and Thomas Davis. I think it was Thomas, who spoke Spanish pretty well, and Fred didn't speak Spanish very well at all. And they had been there in Santiago. They had been trying to teach people about Jesus, and they hadn't really been having much success. People didn't want to listen to what they had to say. They didn't want to buy the books that they were selling about Jesus. They were selling books like The Great Controversy and Patriarchs and Prophets, and The Desire of Ages, and people were like, I'm not really interested. They weren't buying many books from Fred and Thomas. How would you feel if you were Fred or Thomas, and you'd been working in the city for days and weeks, and people hadn't really been listening to you, and all of a sudden somebody just walks up to you on the street and says, you are men from God? Would you think that was a sign that God is watching out for you? I'd be like, oh, God still is watching me. He's taking care of me. He's sending somebody to remind me that He knows what I'm doing. He knows what's going on. That's how Fred and Thomas felt. They were like, yeah, we are men from God. We're missionaries. And what'd you say your name was? And Victor said, I'm Victor. And this is my brother Eduardo. And I had a dream about you. They said, you did? He says, yeah, just 2 nights ago, I had a dream about you, that you were standing here, and he told him the whole thing that his dream had. And he said, after that, I kept thinking, wow, why did I dream such a thing? In fact, he told them, last night when I went to bed, I knelt down and I said, dear God, I'm not sure why I dreamt that. If it's a sign from you, then I want to do whatever you tell me to do. So please show me your plan for my life. Because you told me in the book of Jeremiah that you have plans, that you know the plans you have for me, and that you have plans to prosper me and plans to give me hope in the future. I want to follow your plans. And Fred and Thomas looked at him and said, really? That's amazing. Well, we'd love to tell you more about God and about His plans for the whole world. Can we come to your house? And Victor said, absolutely. You should come to my house. I want you to meet my family. Come on over and we'll have supper for you. So he brought them to the house and introduced them to everybody. And on the way back there, Eduardo was like, what? Are you kidding? These are two strangers that you just found on the street. What are you bringing them back to our house for? Victor said, I'm telling you, this is important. This is an answer to my prayer. This dream is important. And Eduardo was still kind of like, I don't know, okay. They go back to the house, and Victor introduced Fred and Thomas to his dad and his mom and his sister, and they all sat down to eat, and his sister and his mom had made a wonderful supper, all sorts of yummy foods that they eat in Chile, like empanadas and these soups and corn and potatoes and biscuits, and there were lots of yummy things. And then the mom and the sister brought out the main course, the most expensive, important dish of the whole meal, and it was a cooked pig, and they put it right on the table, and it had this gravy all over it, and everyone around the table went, yummy, except for Fred and Thomas. And everyone around the table said, I'll take some. They held their plates, except for Fred and Thomas. And everybody started eating it and going, oh, this is so good. You always make the pig so good, Mom, except Fred and Thomas. And the others noticed that Fred and Thomas weren't eating it. They said, don't you want any? Don't you like to eat pork? And Fred and Thomas said, actually, we used to like to eat pork, but then we quit eating pork because the Bible says that we shouldn't. And everybody around the table said, what? It does? Are you sure? They said, yeah. And the dad got up and he went into the living room and he got his Spanish Bible. He said, you're going to have to show that to me because I've never seen that in the Bible before. And so Fred and Thomas said, okay, we've got a Bible here in English. We're going to find Leviticus. Can you find Leviticus? And they found Leviticus in the Spanish Bible. And they said, okay, we're going to read this verse from the Bible here. It says, do not eat pigs. Now, can you find it there? And he read it in Spanish. And he said, I can't believe it's in the Bible. How come I never heard of that before? Is there anything else in the Bible we've never heard about before? The dad asked. Oh man, if you're a missionary, you want to hear a question like that. They were like, well, we love to tell you more about the Bible. Sure, how long do you have? And they said, well, go ahead and you can tell us more about it. I mean, we've got a couple hours before bedtime. They started reading from the Bible. They started reading verses about what happens when you die. Do you go right to heaven or do you sleep? They started reading verses about who was Jesus? Was he the Son of God or was he just a really nice guy? I started reading verses about what day of the week is Sabbath? What day of the week is the week that we're supposed to worship God? And they read and read and read and read until suddenly they realized it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We've been up all night studying the Bible. And we're not even tired. We're so excited to learn all this. Fred and Thomas said, we can come back again if you'd like. They said, yeah, come back tomorrow night, and we'll invite some friends to come over, and they can be here to listen, because we know they'll want to hear what's going on too. They came back the following night, Fred and Thomas did, and do you know what they found out? Victor and his family had invited more friends to come over, and there was a whole group waiting to hear about what they had to tell them from the Bible. And they talked and talked and talked that evening until late at night. They studied the Bible until late at night, and they did it the next night, and the next night, and the next night, for weeks. And finally, Fred and Thomas said, you know what? We have to head back. We have to leave the town and go somewhere else now, because it's part of the trip that we have planned to be as missionaries. We have to go to other cities too. So we need to go. And Victor was kind of sad. He was like, okay, but you know, I'm not going to be too sad, because I know that God sent you here. He gave me a dream you were going to come. He showed me where you were on the street. He sent you to teach us all these wonderful things. I'm not going to be too sad. I'm glad that I got to meet you. Well, they left, and Victor continued working for Jesus. And now he started getting so excited about this. He wanted to tell other people about it. He said, people, we need to learn about this. We don't need to follow the superstitions that we have in this city. We don't need to be worried about whether there's a black butterfly around or a black cat walking nearby. We don't need to worry about what color the clothes are that we wear. We just need to read what's in the Bible and follow that. And people started listening to Victor. He became one of the first pastors for the Adventist church there. And then he and Eduardo got a printing press, and they started printing out Adventist books, and they started publishing the Signs of the Times magazine, and then they started establishing churches, and eventually Victor became a big leader for the church in Chile, and Eduardo became an editor of a big publishing house for the Adventist church in Chile, and they spread the news of Jesus far and wide. And you know why all of that happened? Because God decided He was going to send a dream to Victor one night and tell him, hey, watch for two guys standing on the street reading a Bible in Spanish, even if they can't read it very well. Isn't that wonderful how powerful God is? If God needs to have something happen, if He needs some people to meet some other people, if He needs somebody to start thinking about Him and wondering, what are God's plans for me? He can do it. He can send a dream, He can send an angel, He can do whatever He needs to do, because God is so powerful. Well, let's not forget the story of Victor and how God was able to work through him to reach many people in Chile. Let's say a prayer for the people of Chile today, and all the people who are worshiping right now there in the city, in the city of Santiago, and all through the country of Chile, okay? Everybody close your eyes. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank You for this story and how it teaches us again how powerful You are and how You want to reach everyone to tell them the good news. Help us to work with You to spread the good news. Please be with the people of Santiago, Chile, as well as the rest of the country today, as they are worshiping in churches all throughout that country. Bless them, protect them, and help them to continue to do work for You as well. We love You. Amen. Amen.